car, so like my
No
body
worries. It's all good. So we're live,
ain't
everybody.
doing so well.
Everybody, my name is Andrew Davis, and you're watching Season 3 of Conversations in Pop Culture, brought to you by my sponsor, which is me and my Kickstarter. Season 3 is up, everybody. It's in the description up above. We are 68% funded, almost to 70. I got 21 days left. At 750, we get 100% funded. At 1,000, we become a podcast. So please go check it out. Support what I'm doing, which is interviewing a lot of indie comic creators, cosplayers, wrestlers, and voice actors. And there's a variety of really cool rewards out there. And so I'm not going to go too much into that. You can check that out on my Kickstarter. And without further ado, I have with me the Grime Heat Bastard himself, professional wrestler Deklan Grant. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. Like I said, you got to bear with me. I might grunt a lot. My body is not cooperating with me the last few days. I got hit by a car.
Well, I don't know if you got hit by a car, as in the sense that you were walking down the street, or a wrestling car.
You would think like wrestling car, like, oh yeah, it's all smoke and mirrors and everything. No, it was my car, and the windshield hurt a whole lot more than intended, and now my body is really shot. And like every day I've been thinking, I'm like, what? Like I don't know sometimes. I really don't. Sometimes I question my logics in doing things.
Well, I'm sure we're going to get to that, and we're going to talk about that entire logic and everything that's happened. But I am curious because I think you're relatively new to wrestling and everything that you've done. And I am curious because obviously I know you from H2O.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen you, and obviously I came across you because I just turned on H2O on IWTV, and then you wound up following me on Twitter, which I don't know was probably the first mistake we made here. But I am curious how you got into wrestling, because it is very interesting how people get into wrestling.
I mean, like ever since I was a kid, it was just always like something I was drawn to. Like no matter what was going on, no matter like football games, hockey, no matter like it was just that main thing I was always drawn to throughout my whole childhood. And I guess I would say, like, long story short, I was just out of options and like what I was doing with myself, and it just came to a point I was like, I'm going to try this, and I've been addicted ever since. So it's just. What's that?
What were you saying?
No, it's been an addiction ever since I started, which is funny though, because now I don't watch it. Like
that's so interesting. So obviously I love comic books. I love wrestling. I love anime. I'm going to be hopefully writing a comic book sometime this year. And the more I get involved in the industry, the more I want to do more stuff in it. And it's so weird that, like, for me, I'm like even further in now. And it must be weird that you're now wrestling, and obviously you wrestle a lot for H2O, and you don't watch it. And I don't know, like, I can imagine that there might get a point where I stop reading comics if I become that good of a writer, because now I can just predict everything that's going to happen. Is that it, or is it something else, or is it?
I mean, it's just like I won't say I don't watch it at all, but like I like old wrestling. Like within the last 15 years ago, and even older than that, go back to like the 80s with like Memphis wrestling. Like I'll sit there. One of my favorite matches is the corniest match you'll ever see. It's Jerry Lawler and Terry Funk, but just the whole atmosphere of it, like how crazy the people react to everything they do. It draws me in. Like I appreciate that more than everything today. Like don't get me wrong, I do like everything. Like if I'm at the show, I'm watching the show. It's not like I'm just completely like against all, but like I won't watch like WWE or AEW or anything. And it's not like I don't want to. I don't know. If it's on, I'll put it on. But if not, watching Dino Ranch and Bluey and all that good stuff.
This is so interesting because obviously I'm a huge comic guy, and my favorite stuff is like the 90s. And I'm a huge Batman guy. And while I like Scott Snyder's run on Batman, I think Chuck Dixon with Nightfall and everything he did for almost 7, 8 years is arguably the best Batman. And stuff from the 90s, artistically, what's being done in comics right now is far better. But it's also the idea that if I had to pick and choose, I'm going to pick and choose like the older stuff because it's more of like my niche. And I'm 29 as of yesterday. So
Happy
it's one of
belated
those
birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And it's weird because it's also the idea that, and not to get too political, but everybody's walking on eggshells right now in our society. And it's also like in the 90s, they were pushing the line rather than having to worry about being canceled or crossing a line. I'm not saying that, companies don't do that. I mean, H2O pushes the line with matches and things like that. But what is that like for you? Because in the 80s, it was fair game in a lot of ways.
Yeah. I mean, like, in a way, like, I like think about it, like, do I gotta watch what I say? I might offend somebody with certain things I say, but at the same time, I'm smart enough to not say certain things and not touch on certain topics because I know it will cause chaos. So it's like it's easy to stir away from them, but like I know what you mean exactly from just even being a kid going to the arena and like old CZW shows. Like some of the chants that would happen. Oh, in today's society, cancel culture would be going through the roof with some of the stuff that happened. But it was a different time and it was a different day.
Yeah, and even just the idea that there are certain chants, though, that I'm even a little bit shocked that happen at matches with Atticus. Kogar's a good example. Like, I
Yeah.
don't know how that gets away and how that's allowed. And, like, to
It,
me, it's ludicrous. And I don't have a problem with it. And I don't think Atticus cares all that much either in the scheme of things. But even still, like I'm hearing that, I'm like, what the fuck is going on here, for lack of a better
yeah.
word? Because
Well,
I'm like,
you always have them people. You always get them people that they open their mouth, especially when they're drinking. They run their mouth and everything. A lot of that stuff though does get addressed, like from being in the locker room, and like some people will come into the locker room and even like point out the guy that's saying stuff. Oh, who is it? Okay, and when boss lady goes after you, that's when you know you're in some shit.
so the thing I'm referring to is Atticus something, and like Reed Bentley has stated it, and that's the chant I'm referring to, which
Okay.
I don't think that chant has been addressed when Atticus is being called a CUNT.
Oh, okay.
Like that I don't know how that thing gets away, but other things have been addressed, I know, in a locker room in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. But it's so interesting with that. But I want to shy away from this because I don't want to get you or me in
Yeah.
trouble.
Now we're trying
We've
to
already
make
created the
ourselves.
TikTok soundbite for my show here. I love Atticus though. I think that guy is a phenomenal wrestler in so
Yeah,
many
he's really good.
ways. And I didn't realize how young he was either, which is even more mind shocking because he does not look his age.
And
He
he's
looks like 10
levels
years
ahead
older.
of a lot of people too. Like just his psychology alone is steps ahead of so many people.
But I do want to talk a little bit about your career now that we've got all the controversial stuff out of the way. And I really want to focus on 2021, but we do need to talk about 2020. And you had a few matches that really stood out to me. Jimmy Lloyd is a good one to talk about. You had a match with Matt Tremont, and Eric Corvus was another one that was very, very interesting. And Marcus Matters and Frankie Pickard with Stan Styles was involved in those matches. So what was that like? 'Cause this was really early in your career.
I mean, like it was still like a learning experience for him. It was surreal with like being in the ring with like Matt, but at the same time, everything was just like a learning. Like everything still is a learning experience for me. Like I'm only about 19 months in. I go off of my child. My child was born 2 months after I started wrestling. So like basically, did she? And she gave me a dirty look as soon as I mentioned her. She doesn't like me too much right now. But yeah, like everything's still like a learning experience. And it's like a lot of things are surreal for me because growing up, like these are a good amount of these people. Like Jimmy, I'd known Jimmy since he was a kid. He hung out with a different group at the arena, but for the most part, it was like seeing Matt do his debut and then seeing Matt do his retirement match and physically being there for both of them was pretty wild to me. And then being in the ring with him on top of it.
And to even talk about this, because H2O is very cool, where H2O has a bunch of new kids coming up and the new generation, and H2O is building a whole new generation of H2O and probably the next 10 years. But then you also have people like Ricky Shane Page, Jimmy Lloyd, Matt Tremont, and a variety of other veterans. You know, Chuck Payne's another one in that group, and Ron Mathis as well, and, you know, Jeff Cannonball. And what is that like? Because all those guys come in and out. Homicide's been in and out of H2O. And so what is that like for you? Because you're getting a really hands-on experience, you know, whenever you're in the ring, whether it's, you know, on sort of the discovering show that they put on or the main card stuff that they do. What is that like for you? Because you're getting years and years of experience presented to you with these veterans, you know, from all over the world. I mean, Matt Tremont has done everything in wrestling at this point.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, really, it's very humbling. Like, very, very humbling just to share the same locker room with some of these people, let alone the same ring. Like, just being in the same environment, being able to talk one-on-one with them and have regular conversations, and then also ask them about wrestling, try to pick their brains with that. Like, and I've come across so many people that, like, I was able to pick little bit by little bit from, like Shane Douglas, Nick Gage, Homicide, Low Life Louie, Matt, and like I'm very, very, very fortunate. I would say Dev, but he ran me over, so he's on my shit list. But it's like it's fun being around these people, and like still like a weird thing for me. Like I'll get my car, drive off, and just think to myself, like I just stood there for about an hour, just talking about football with Low Life Louie, or talking about baseball with Homicide. Like, and it's just like a weird thing to me because it's like I'll tell 12-year-old me that, and I'll say, no way. Nah, that would never happen. But it's very humbling. Very, very humbling.
And even to go further into this, and I know, you know, Dev might be on your shit list right now, but obviously you formed a team with Devin Moore. And one of the things is that is a very interesting time that the two of you were teaming up together. And I know there was something going up in Boston that may or may not have been great happening between the two of you. But what was this like? Because obviously Devin Moore has a few more years of experience on you, and even teaming up and being the grimy bastards and doing all that stuff. And how did all this come about?
I mean, in the beginning, when everything first like started, everything, again, very humbling and very surreal for me because he was actually one of my favorites in PWU years ago. And like to be able to say like, oh, now he's my tag team partner, and then to build a relationship not only in wrestling but outside wrestling as well. Just hit him up, to be texting and stuff like that, like we used to all the time, and that was all surreal. But then issues occurred throughout time, and what occurs in the locker room starts slowly fizzling because it makes good TV, fizzles towards us going out there after each other. So,
and even to give a little bit more context, you know, obviously you had some amazing matches with the brand, obviously facing Connor Claxton and Drew Blood, you know, dealing with Gigi Everson and Mason Martin, Stockade, you know, having some crazy matches with Dan Champion and Lucky 13.
That was fun.
And it was cool because Dan Champion is not typically in H2O all that often. So that was a cool match in a lot of ways, and I like him a lot.
That man's even bigger in person.
I just recently enjoyed what he did with a very good professional wrestler up in Boston, because that was a great match, and I don't think people understand how good that match was. And obviously, I mean, I could keep going through a bunch of different names with tag team wrestling, but what was this like, really building a name and then having it slowly fizzle out, where the two of you then started having a lot of matches facing each other? in a lot of ways. And there's also a lot of other history that was going on between the two of you, and really building that out, because now it actually meant something in wrestling when I've been watching it. I haven't caught everything that was going on, but I've seen that thing, break down. And then obviously you go from tag team partners to then having issues and then having matches and then one-upping each other and all that stuff, because as you stated, it makes really good television.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me to like touch on that topic without like not getting mad, but like kind of venting frustrations. And like you said earlier, it's like we got to walk on eggshells. We got to watch what we say and everything like that. So,
but the impetus that sort of came out of this is that you then became a singles wrestler in a lot of ways.
yeah.
And one of the things that's super interesting, and one of the things that I really want to talk about, I really wanted to talk about 2020, because I don't think 2020 was your year, because 2021 was in a lot of ways. And I think, one of the things that sort of happened in 2021 is that you got thrown into Hair to Thy Throne tournament. And that was a crazy circumstance where obviously, and you're going to have to explain to me this first match. It was the Inside the Park home run three-way match with, obviously, you were involved in it, Kristen Rose was involved with it, and Reed Walker was involved in it, and you had your veterans in your corners, and, well, that match sort of was not, I guess, tame, to say the least. And so what was this like, really getting involved in this and then going on and having this match and sort of just going down that path, because it was a real opportunity for you?
Yeah, I viewed it once everything was like brought to my attention about like the whole tournament and everything. I just viewed it as like, all right, I'm gonna have to go balls to the wall now. I'm by myself and I'm in a tournament that goes to something even more special. So why not show my ass? Why not go as hard as I can and get across my point and let people see me for who I am? And like part of me feels like I got it across, but then I didn't. At the same, like I'm my biggest critic. Most of the time, I'll sit there and watch some of my stuff, and I'm just like. But for the most part, like it was just like it was a moment for me to just think to myself, like, all right, now's an opportunity. You might not get another one, so take full advantage of this one and just see where it goes.
Because obviously, for those who don't know, you made it to the finals and then you won it, and you were facing Marcus Mathers. You had Anthrax in there. Obviously, Gigi Everson was in there, and all three of the guys that I mentioned were sort of coming up and were, sort of the next generation of H2O. And all the guys that I just mentioned are amazing wrestlers, and they're killing it right now, and you as well. And so what was this like? Because this entire tournament was really an opportunity for all the new guys to show what they can do, show that they belong, and then even winning that. And I think all four of you really did well with that and showed why you belong in H2O. And so what was that like that you won it, and that sort of confirmed your position, I feel, in H2O, and said, hey, we're the next generation, and this is what we can do in a ring, and this is what I can do in a ring, and I don't need anybody to get my back. And I could, hang with the best in a lot of ways.
I mean, honestly, I don't think I could have said it any better than you just did. Honestly, that was the mindset of everybody in that locker room leading up to the tournament, the day of the tournament, and even after the tournament. Everybody still had that mindset because we were like pumping out shows more and more at the point that there was mainly just H2O, like students and everybody that's real local for a while, just pumping shows out, and then doing the undiscovers every other Monday. Everybody was just getting better and better and better, faster rates, and everyone's like basically one upping each other. So like basically, like, can you top that?
Yeah,
and see how it worked out though. Even like with like Marcus Mathers and Austin Luke, and they're getting opportunities in other companies now and being able to show what they can do everywhere else.
And even to go further into you, because obviously Marcus Mathers, that guy is a freak of an athlete, and it's amazing. And Austin Luke, I don't know too much about Austin Luke as much as I know about Marcus Mathers, but
Most moves are.
Clearly.
He's a cocky prick, but he's pretty good.
Well. If you say so, I'll take your word for it. But to even go further into you, because after this tournament, you had a bunch of matches with a bunch of people. You know, Brandon Kirk, and that's crazy. And Brandon Kirk, and I like Casey a lot. Casey was on my other show, and she's great. She's great. And so, what was that Brandon Kirk match like? Because that guy is a workhorse.
Yeah, he is.
He's unjustly hated, might I add, but rightfully so. He's a Mavericks fan, so
in the beginning it was like kind of strange, like because I really didn't know him, and like I never really like had any conversations with him or anything like that. That was the most we've ever really talked to each other was going into that match. So it was like weird for me because I wasn't comfortable with him. It was a brand new person. I'm just meeting for the first time, and we're about to go out and do our thing and everything like that. But like once we started, it just flowed perfectly for me. Like I felt.
And even to talk about Brandon Kirk for a second, one of the things is that Brandon Kirk has made a name for himself in a variety of promotions. You know, and I might mention a dirty name here, CCW. Brandon Kirk has made a name for himself. Obviously, ICW, No Holds Bar, H2O. Brandon Kirk is killing it, and a variety of other promotions as very much a deathmatch wrestler. And really, he can wrestle in any style. And I know that you didn't meet him before, but you obviously must have known who he was.
Oh, yeah, I knew exactly who he was, but I just going into it not knowing him personally or anything like that. Just the first time we have a conversation.
So what was that like, though? Because there's a lot of clout that going into it, because now you're wrestling somebody who really has done it all, and it's very much, you're new, and he's sort of the veteran, and a lot of pressure's on, right?
Oh yeah, especially everything's broadcasted live too. So it's just like, oh, no pressure, kid. This is also being broadcast, and there's a couple hundred to maybe a few thousand people watching it. So no pressure at all. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like when the time came and it was ready to go out, like I basically shut everything down. Like every time I go out, I can't see, and it doesn't even matter how many people are in the crowd. It could be 12 people in the crowd. If I stand in that ring and I look out in the crowd, I don't see anybody. It like gets really blurry for me to the point like I don't notice anybody. I'm just focused what I'm doing, and the person I'm going after is the only person I see. Like I don't even see the referee most of the time, and he's right next to me. Like it's a weird thing. I like kind of have a blackout moment.
Very much tunnel vision, very much just in the moment. Like you ever get into what I like to call the zone? So
yeah,
I don't know how to describe the zone, but everything goes in like slow motion. There's nothing around you. You feel like you can go through a person. It's like the weirdest thing ever.
You feel nothing, but you feel everything at the same time. And it's just like it's weird levels. Like it's very hard to. That's why I said I'm addicted to this. Because it's like very hard to actually put in words, especially somebody like me who has a very small vocabulary. If it's not a curse word, I can't really speak. So it's like it's really hard for me to try to explain like the adrenaline rush of that. As soon as you hit the curtain to when you come back through the curtain, like as soon as you come back through the curtain, you look at everybody and you feel like you're ready to lift up a house. Like it's a whole nother world.
I know exactly the feeling, and I don't know how to describe it either. And my vocabulary is vast, and I have a hard enough time describing that experience to everybody. It's such a weird thing. It's almost like when Goku drops a spirit bomb. You know that's that's as close as we're gonna get. That's as close as we're gonna get to explaining. And then I would imagine this match was kind of crazy too with you versus Homicide, because that's a wild match.
That as soon as I seen the card for it, because like Matt never told me anything. I went to H2O one night, went to the training class and everything, and he just looked at me. He's like, "You have Twitter?" I said, "Yeah, I just made one. Like I'm still learning how Twitter works. I like Instagram better because I can watch videos." But he says, "All right, check your Twitter in a little bit." My phone goes off, and Gigi actually comes walking by me. And he was like, "Wow, you're in trouble." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He was like, "You're wrestling Homicide on the first?" I'm like, you got it. Like my heart went down into my stomach, and almost if I would have farted, it would have came out my ass. I was so nervous because I knew I he was my original trainer, so like I know how the man operates, and I know he does things like to just ruin you throughout the whole entire match. Everybody else, it looks like, oh, they're going at it, they're going to war. No, we really are going to war, and it's like you gotta keep yourself, you gotta keep up with him, otherwise he will drag you through the whole entire thing, and he will abuse you the entire time. He cut my eyebrow, cut from like here all the way over here with his fingernail.
He's a sick human being, and
He is.
what is that like though? Because obviously, Homicide is very much an old school wrestler,
Yes.
and he's very much not PC in how he operates, not PC in how he does things. I don't think he's trying to put somebody in a hospital per se and
No,
take away
that's
their
not his
career.
intention.
But it's also this idea that you're going to get stretched.
Oh yeah. You're going to school anytime you step in the ring with that man, no matter who you are. No matter who you are. You get in that ring, you better tighten your boots up, and you better be ready to fight. And you better know how to fight. Otherwise, he will physically and mentally abuse you that entire time. And like you said, he's not intentionally trying to send you to the hospital. But when you sit down in that locker room afterwards, you're going to take that deep breath and say, man, I just had my ass whipped. Like, yes, that man is.
And also, even to go further into this, because Homicide's been in and out of major promotions his entire career. He's done everything, and he leaves certain promotions for a while, then he comes back, months later. So not everybody gets a match with Homicide. Not everybody gets a match with, people who get and have traveled the world and have done amazing things. And so what was that like on just a personal level? Obviously, he was your trainer, and you know him on that level, but also getting a match and getting it, on IWP and all that stuff, and getting it out there, because it is sort of a badge of honor to some degree.
Oh yeah, 100%. For me, like, I'm gonna use this word. I'm gonna play this word out so bad. Very surreal, and like even standing in the ring, he makes his entrance. All that, like, the tunnel vision was there, but it wasn't like I was in the zone of I'm ready to fight. I was more of like the fan in a way. And it wasn't until we start going at it that I'm like, oh shit, like, all right, now let's do this. Like, let's start going. But like for the most part, like it was just like a super humbling moment for me, and definitely a painful moment. He murdered me for 15 minutes. I couldn't breathe for the life of me. Like once we got back there, I'm like, and he not even breathing heavy, nothing. Like it was nothing to him. I mean, it's just hard to put in words, man. It really is. Like I don't know how to explain certain things.
I know how he wrestles, and I understand exactly how he wrestles. And he's the type of wrestler that will use lemon juice as a weapon.
He'll use bleach as a weapon. Lemon juice is him being nice to you. Yes. Lemon juice is him being nice to you. Okay. That cut I had from here over to here, that was his you're all right. Like that's him being nice. And like you said, like, no, he's really not like a PC type and everything. And it just like part of me like thinks about it a lot. Like there was a lot of people who came in and out of the compound when I was training. But at the same time, it was a core 3 people all the time, because people will come, go through the regiment, and then you won't see them again. They would go somewhere else. So like part of me like takes that as a badge of honor, knowing like I'm one of the only people that came out of that school. Now, I'm not the only person he's ever really trained, but I'm one of the only people that come from that school. So like in a way, like I feel like
so to even talk about that a little bit in training, because obviously, I have heard a bunch of wrestlers and interviewed a lot of wrestlers in the last 3 years, and even before that, and everybody gets trained differently. And just because somebody is home sides training is not for everybody,
Right.
and there's nothing wrong where I'm sure there are plenty of wrestlers who just said, look, this is not how I want to be trained. I don't connect with this trainer, and it's nothing against Homicide, and I'm sure Homicide has nothing against those people to say, hey, look, you're not the way I want to be trained. But at the same time, also being trained very tough and being trained in a very beat up way can be beneficial, especially when you're wrestling for certain companies. I mean, I think of, GCW is a good one to throw out when they're doing hardcore stuff. CCW back in the day, ICW No Holds Bar is a good one. That being trained in H2O obviously can go extreme in a lot of ways. And so what was that like coming in, knowing you had that background in that? I don't want to say extreme training, but definitely the rougher side of training and a little more beat up training, I guess.
I mean, like, I wouldn't view it so much. It was a lot of basically your basic fundamentals, but also like a lot of old school like fundamentals as well. Like, you do all the Hindu squats, you're doing all the push. Like, your warm ups are about 2.5, 3 hours, and then you get into the ring, and then you start doing the in ring training. But by the time you're doing the in ring training, you're like, already. So, like, going into it, and one thing about Homicide was that he wasn't really like, as far as the death matches and stuff like that, like, he did do hardcore wrestling. He never really done any death matches or anything like that. And it's not that he hated them, he just didn't, that wasn't what his teaching was. And even with Nick, Nick never taught me how to take a chair shot or any of that stuff. That their main thing was learn how to wrestle. If you want to do the other stuff, go ahead, but you're going to learn to wrestle first before you do any of that stuff. Like, you're not going to go out there and throwing shit punches and not knowing how to do good moves or anything like that, and think, oh, I'm just going to go out and swing light tubes and bleed, and that's all I'm going to do. Like, no, you're learning how to wrestle, and that's it. He actually gets mad at me sometimes when he sees about, like, I'll do a show where I'm bleeding all over the place, and he's just like, you don't have to do that. I'm like, I kind of grew up on it. It's kind of hard for me to say no to doing it.
And so what is that like to actually have the basics? Because I think that, wrestling fans, and to sort of break kayfabe a little bit here, it's the idea that I think a lot of wrestling fans just think that you're trained to be a deathmatch wrestler, or they don't understand that you need to have the fundamentals first and foremost. I teach comic book investing, and what I teach is I teach a basic premise. I don't tell people what books to buy or even how, but I teach people the skill set. And I think it's a complicated thing because there's really good wrestling schools and there's bad ones. And skill sets are very important, I feel. And also, even proper etiquette in a locker room is a really good skill set, because there's tons of wrestlers who have really shitty etiquette.
Yeah. I mean, kind of lost my train of thought just now. As far as like the locker room etiquette goes, like, that was always big. It was just always be respectful, treat everybody the way you want it. Your basic life mentality. Not even so much
don't be an asshole. You'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be an asshole. Say hello to people. Stay to yourself. Don't talk about people and everything. Like, your basic life fundamentals. But like, as far as like pro wrestlers learning with death matches and everything like that, there's no such thing. To the best of my knowledge, there's not a school out there that's, oh, we teach you how to be a deathmatch. No, every deathmatch wrestler is a professional wrestler. Their genre that they do is deathmatch wrestling. And like, a lot of people look at like certain people like, oh, hack and slash, they bleed, garbage wrestling. Not at all. Not even close. Like, Low Life Louie loves deathmatch wrestling. Put Low Life Louie in a regular wrestling match. He came from the same trainer that I have. Low Life Louie will stretch you. Low Life Louie is going to blow you up. Low Life Louie is going to run and go back and forth with you that entire match. He just likes to do death matches.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is very interesting. I think people, when they see people who do these deathmatch wrestlers do regular matches, like, they're blown away.
Mhm.
And I'm like, for me, I've seen people like Gary Day not do a deathmatch wrestling thing, and he can chop hard and he can, chain wrestle in a lot of ways. And I think that's something that people and fans, and I feel that this is just my opinion, that a lot of fans in these companies forget that these wrestlers are wrestlers first, and deathmatch wrestling or hardcore match wrestling or tag team wrestling is just a genre you're participating in. But that doesn't mean you can't be a singles wrestler, you can't do a regular match, you can't do a comedy match. I think it's a big misconception.
The thing with pro wrestling's universal. Basically, every wrestler, if they want to, they will do it. Like you've seen, how many wrestlers who are straight wrestlers have we seen transition over to do death matches? We've seen Chris Jericho in a friggin' death match. Like Chris Jericho's using light tubes on national TV. So it's like if you want to do it, then they're gonna do it. But it also comes with a lot of baggage to it too. Like you want to go out there and use these gimmicks and use these weapons and everything like that. Okay, tomorrow the fans ain't going to be clapping for you. You're not walking through a curtain the next day. I mean, unless you have another show. But for the most part, you're going to be home with these wounds and with all that pain and everything like that. And it hurts a lot worse the next day. And then the next day. And then sometimes it hurts for the whole week. Like the 3-way dance I did with Chuck Payne and G Raver, my neck, I couldn't turn my head for about almost a week and a half. I couldn't properly turn my head, and then I finally went to the chiropractor. He snapped it back in place, and then it just it healed, but then it didn't. Like it still ached everywhere. So it's like when you do these type of matches, that's what comes with it.
Yeah,
we're special kind of stupid. Special kind of stupid.
Yeah, I mean, I had Akira on, and you know who Akira is, right? So
I was actually funny that you mentioned him, because on that topic of people who see deathmatch wrestlers actually wrestle regular matches, very first match I've ever seen Akira, he wrestled Reed Bentley. It wasn't a hardcore match. It wasn't a death match. It was just a straight wrestling match. Definitely the best match on that entire show. It was hard hitting, solid, very snug, very basic, wrestling I like. Very aggressive, and it was a great match. And then fast forward, he's doing death matches, and I'm like, oh my god, he's the next. He kind of reminded me of Sick Nick Mondo a little bit. I was like, oh man, there it is.
The reason why is that there's a match with Matt and Akira, and that's the match on ICW No Holds Bar where Akira and Matt gave Akira props and sort of said, you made it, kid, a little bit, is how I took it. And Akira had to go to the hospital because basically that light tube was stabbed in and he was losing a lot of blood.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I don't even call that a special kind of stupid. I call that this is real. It's not anymore a game. And Akira, a week later, is on and he's lifting up his shirt, showing me live on my show, and I'm just I thought it was a little bit funny, but I'm also oh shit, this is the moment for TikTok here, if anything. But it's the idea that deathmatch wrestling is very dangerous in a lot of ways.
I like deathmatch, and especially today's deathmatch wrestling. I like how it's transitioned to more hybrid style, to where it's all around, and even with regular wrestlers coming in that put on 5-star matches, just regular wrestling matches, come in and do a death match, and then they put on a 5-star death match because they're mixing in the weapons and everything like that as well. My thing though with death matches, why I like deathmatch wrestling, just the genre itself, a little bit more, is because it is the most legitimate form of pro wrestling that there is. That blood's not fake. That them cuts that are appearing on their bodies and everything like that aren't fake. You can't fake that. You also feel going through glass and being cut up by glass, regardless of how much that adrenaline is going, it hurts. Thumbtacks, they hurt. Everything hurt. Plus, a lot of the times, the moves themselves, full contact, punches to the face, full contact punch. We're not pulling back because you're in a war mode. Like you're just like as soon as you feel your blood come down, as soon as you're like ready to go, like you're in war mode at that point. You turn into a whole nother animal.
Yeah, and obviously you've been in a bunch of crazy death matches and a variety of other matches. You were in a match with Atticus Kogar, Eric Ryan, Kennedy Copeland, and I love Kennedy because she is so good. And that was like a four-way death match. And you were in like a dog collar death match with obviously Devin Moore, and you've had a bunch of fights with him. You've had a bunch of street fights with I think Chris Bradley, I want to say, I think,
Yeah.
and so, like, what is that like at this stage? And then there's a bunch of other matches. I mean, you've been in, I think a hardcore ladder match with Atticus also, and those are some crazy matches that you were in, and that was for the Danny Havoc hardcore title, that ladder match. So, what was that like, really going into that violence? And I don't want to say stupid, kind of wrestling and a special kind of stupid book because I enjoyed those matches.
Yeah, no, trust me, I'm a big fan. Like outside of like that will be what I watch. Like if I'm sitting there watching wrestling, I'll be pulling up a lot of like hardcore death matches. Or, I mean, like I do like the strong style stuff too, but that's starting to get old. But like going into that ladder match, first off, I was a little nervous with climbing up a ladder that's in the ring because the boards do move around a lot when people are walking in the ring. So like I'm afraid the ladder's going to even tip over the entire time. But just the idea of all right, like this is what we're using. That's what we got to go grab. Let's do it. Like just you kind of shut out everything else and you just go out and do it and don't really think of the repercussions until after you're sitting in the back like yeah, that hurt a lot. But
because I mean these matches are amazing in a lot of ways, and it's just this idea that also it's in H2O, and that's the other thing too is that this is like anybody who knows Matt Tremont, this is like his territory, and this is what he has made famous. So like for me, when I'm watching H2O and I see a hardcore match or I see a death match, there's a lot of history built in all of this, and it also makes it special. It's kind of like ICW No Holds Bar. It's a very special entity. When I go and watch deathmatch wrestling elsewhere, I don't feel like it has that special elements to it, if that makes any sense.
no, I get what you mean. I feel like today anymore, like whenever, like if I don't see the full beginning of the match or see what promotion it is, if I see glass all over the ring, it all looks the same to me anymore. So it's just like, all right, click it or scroll past it because it just might be another hack and slash. Like that's the problem with some death matches. Like I won't say that I don't ever really consider any of the matches I did, like the hardcore matches or anything like that, as death matches. I feel like in order for it to be a death match, there has to be some glass involved. A lot more like barbed wire and stuff like that. Like I've used barbed wire, but never to the extent of how I've seen it in other death matches, like that I would actually consider death matches. But
This is so interesting because I actually don't know what a hardcore match is versus a death match versus a street fight at this point. And I'm actually very curious what you feel that is because these are great questions. So, and I'll give an example. I don't think that Edge versus Mick Foley at WrestleMania 22 is a death match. To me, that seems like a hardcore match or even a street fight, or
I always felt like hardcore and street fight were basically the same. It was just another way of calling it a hardcore match. I mean, most of the time, street fights you would hear about it, you would think like, all right, they're going to eventually go outside somewhere and fucking brawl in the street or something. But like the hardcore and street fight, I feel like they're always the same thing. But with death matches, it's like there's elements involved in it that change the whole landscape of it. Like you can have a no rope barbed wire match. That's technically a death match because there's no ropes catching. You're getting thrown into razor sharp barbed wire. And then there's glass involved, and then they'll add light tubes and then thumbtacks. Like hardcore would be more like just regular steel chair, a regular table, maybe a door today, a trash can, stuff like that. Like stuff that you get hit with and won't bleed. I mean, chairs. I got hit in the top of the head with a chair by Devin. and whole top of my head opened up just because I got hit with the corner of the chair. So like things can happen where you do get opened up with certain things, but like death matches, it's like guaranteed there's going to be blood everywhere, and it's just a matter of time before the both of them are bleeding everywhere.
No, that makes sense, because this is what I have as a wrestling fan, is that it gets tricky when we're figuring out what is what. Because that all of a sudden what starts happening is that everybody starts calling, oh, we're having a street fight, we're having a death, and then certain companies go and they have a different interpretation of what a street fight is. If that makes any sense. Like,
I get what you mean. They might, like, for instance, TNA might say, oh, it's a street fight. Actually have it out in the middle of the street somewhere, like have a little stage set or whatever they do. So like people mix it up a lot. I love when I see a Texas death match and it's basically a street fight. Like that's basically what it ends up being. It's just a hardcore match. They just call it a Texas death match.
Because it's one of those things that I just think is really, really interesting in that regard. And obviously, there's a lot of stuff that happens. And then, we have companies like No Peace Underground, and also obviously W No Holds Barred, where they have no pit fights and they have pit fighter acts and like no ring death matches. And that stuff is just wild in its own right. And so it's just like there's all sorts of stuff out there that's about it. And I get confused as a fan. And because I don't know what's what anymore, and that's just how I feel.
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's why I look at it as, all right, here's another wrestling show. Who's on the card? Oh, really? That's going to be good. That's going to be good. That can be good. That's going to be the shits. Like, just that's how I look at wrestling anymore. It's just who's on the card, what's going to happen. All right, cool, let's watch it. But when it comes to like actually getting invested into it, I'll turn on like WWF Raw from 97, 98. Now I'm invested in Kane and Undertaker, which I know is complete bullshit, but I'm invested in the story because it's awesome.
So let me ask a question, because this is very, very interesting. So I obviously love a good story in wrestling, but I'm also a comic book guy. And like I've been following series for years. And I'm waiting for the big payoff. And I like to read a lot, and I like to watch a lot of anime. I'm in the middle of watching Fairy Tail, which has 350 episodes. So, and Attack on Titan is about to finish in the next 12 weeks, and I'm super excited for it. So there's going to be a big payoff. And so when I see stories that have years and years of build to them, and even if we have a program that in a certain promotion, or it's jump promotions at this point, like how important is story versus just putting two guys in the ring, just putting two guys who can wrestle, or even building to something? Because this is a problem I have in wrestling where I'm invested. So I'll give an example. The Ricky Shane Page and Matt Tremont storyline, and ridding, RSP of the title and the retirement side of things, and Matt saying, finish me. Like I was invested in that, and the build up to that, and all the drive to that. Like that was an investment for me. And so I don't know how important that is in wrestling and really building out wrestlers.
I feel like now it's starting to come back. Like you're starting to see like more like even indie promotions doing more storylines and everything. I love them. I feel like that's what pro wrestling is. Like, yes, you tell a story in the ring, but you could also have a story going into what happens in the ring as well. It's not just about move, because then it comes to a point. It's like, well, what the hell did I just watch? For instance, use Matt and Ricky Shane Page. That whole story that went over a year of them two, and it was just them two back and forth, without Matt physically getting into the ring. Ultimate payoff. He came back, went after Ricky. Hurrah, he's the hero. And it's like you said, it invested everybody in it. It made people want to watch it, like see what happens next. And it like you get lost in it. When you go to wrestling shows, yeah, you can go and watch all the cool moves and all the cool spots, but then you leave, and what do you remember from it other than somebody doing something that almost killed them? You know what I mean?
Because that's what's happening. And I don't watch Monday Night Raw. I don't watch AEW. You know, with
I can't even tell you who's on Raw anymore and who's on AEW. Like, I'll see it from Instagram and everything like that, or like clips from YouTube. But as far as keeping up of what's going on with the program,
the
I'm
only
lost.
reason why I know any of this is I watch a 10-minute recap because legitimately I don't want to spend more than 10 minutes knowing what happened on Raw and SmackDown. I'm not even willing to spend 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Legitimately, you have to combine the two. And then I don't even care what's going on in NXT. And then I will watch, the pay-per-views because that's me just talking and I'm on Twitter and I'm going to be doing a bunch of watch-alongs probably with my friends this year on this and doing content on it. So, and hopefully I won't get a flag from YouTube because I really don't want to deal with that. But I'm already in trouble enough on YouTube. I'm demonetized.
YouTube.
So this is why I have sponsors. So clearly, I set the trend. I just want to make that crystal clear for everybody. Before everybody got demonetized and in trouble on YouTube, I was first. I will take the trophy. Not your trophy, not both your trophies, but just my own trophy. So
we'll make you a trophy.
What?
Make you a trophy I'll make you a trophy with the YouTube logo and just have the big X out of it, like banned.
Clearly, you demonetized. I'm still out on YouTube. I'm just demonetized. It's unfortunate because I was making real money on YouTube. I'm still upset about it. 10 years later,
They hold grudges. They're petty. That's why YouTube's real petty. They still owe the Maya He guy money. The fat guy that used to sing Maya He like 12 years ago, 13 years ago. They owe him money.
They owe everybody money.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
But welcome to greedy capitalism for you.
Welcome to America. That's all you could say anymore. Welcome to America. Give us your money.
That is true. That is true. It's so true. And obviously, though, I do want to talk about the past 3 weeks because a lot of stuff's happened. And the massacre in Massachusetts was a really cool show you were on. And I thoroughly enjoyed that show because you and Devin were fighting all over. And then there was no match going on. And then, Chuck Payne and Lucky had a match. And in typical H2O fashion, Lucky was like, we'll make it a fatal four-way out of nowhere. And what was that like? Because that was really cool. It was super exciting because the two of you were fighting, and then you went out of, the White Eagle Hall and all that stuff, and even being part of Wrestle Festival and all that stuff, the Restival. And what was that like, even just having H2O up there, being up in Boston? And I think that was one of the only times H2O has been out of Jersey in a while.
Yeah, now thinking about it, because I think they had a show in Ohio long before I started. I think they went out to Ohio for a show, but it was a new experience, especially for me because I'd never been up that far. Like the furthest north I've been, northeast is New York. Never really been anywhere further past that. So like being up in a whole nother area, I was a little disappointed because I was hoping to come across a few people with the Boston accent and nobody had it. I was very upset at that because for some reason I find that accent hysterical. But it was a great time, honestly. Like it was a cool experience. And then my head got stuck into a chair and almost taken off. But, that's neither here nor there. It was a happy new year to me, I guess.
But even going further, what was that like? Because obviously I was watching a lot of the Restival. I only watched about 5 out of the 7 shows just because I was at a New Year's party and it was just not going to happen. People who are not wrestling fans. So we're no longer friends. So
I know how it is. I know exactly how it is.
You have to put parameters to make sure the bad people get out. Commit a felony, totally fine. Not like wrestling, you're axed. But what was that like being in that and then just wrestling and really going down that path? Because it was super, super cool to be up there and be part of that, I think. And even if it was a small spot, it was so interesting that it's our thing. And
just being in another being in another building wrestling, because I haven't wrestled really in that many other places. I did one appearance for JCW, and I did the Worcester. I don't know how to pronounce what part of Massachusetts it was. I asked a million people. They'd said Worcester 1,000 times. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go with Worcester. But it was a great experience. And even Atlantic City, like going into another building, it's just a great experience being in a different ring. It's a little weird at first because you kind of got to get used to the different ring because H2O, our ring is hard as a rock. It's a little bit bigger than certain rings. Like I think it might have been a little bit bigger than the one that they were using up for Restival. And the ropes are a lot higher too. Like the ropes, for some reason, they just seem very high in our ring compared to other rings. Like I'll go to hit the top rope, and I'm just like, whoa, like it's a little lower down my back than I'm used to. But
This is fascinating because I'm not a wrestler, so I don't know any of this, and nobody talks about any of this. So this is fascinating for me, where I've never been in a wrestling ring. I probably never will be.
I basically just gave my hand away of how green I am. That I've only really wrestled for a few other places.
But yeah, I mean, if you go on your cage match, it's pretty clear that you don't have much, history, for lack of a better word.
I'm brand new. I don't even think my cage match has a picture on it.
Your cage match technically isn't even active. I had to reverse engineer and had to go back looking at IWTV, your Facebook page, and then going through H2O's backlog saying, what the fuck, how am I supposed to write this interview? It's like, no, this is how good of a researcher I am, is I figured out how to backtrack because you're black on that. So you don't even have a cage match at this point.
Nope. Nope. I'm so green. I'm brand new. They don't even know who the hell I am.
When I'm like, are we doing this? Because I don't want to start writing the interview and like.
You could have asked me what I had for breakfast. I really don't care.
And so that's something but I find that so interesting that rings are different and that getting used to it, and because I wouldn't know that every ring is different, and even in size or ropes or even thickness of ropes. Like again, I'm not a wrestler. I have no intention of stepping inside a ring at any chance in my life because I really don't like pain. And I don't want to get hurt. And I have plenty of other activities that will get me my highs that I need.
I hear you. I wish I found them before I started throwing my body onto the ground the way I do.
And so obviously there's a lot of stuff going on with you. Obviously you're killing it. Devin Moore might have hit you with a car. I don't know why he would do such a thing. It wasn't very polite of him. And I have a feeling that feud between the two of you is far from over.
I don't know. Anymore, I'm just like, I'm over him. I'm over going back and forth, especially him hitting me with a car. Like, I'm just, I don't even like I don't know how to put it in words. Because like, when you look at the big picture of the situation, regardless of how you look at it, he hit me with a car. He could have pressed his foot down on that pedal as hard as he could. I could have either went through that windshield all the way. I could have got blown out. My back could have been broken. My neck could have been broken. I could have been paralyzed. There were so many things that could have went wrong that me just having a excruciating back pain is, I guess, the best outcome of it. But at the same time, like, I keep like trying to think because anymore I just like I'm gonna choke him to death anymore, and I don't know if I can keep my calm and keep my patience and put on a good show for everybody without trying to really put harm on this person. Like I don't know. I got a lot of things to think about, especially with that whole situation. Like I have a family I got to worry about. I have a full-time job I got to worry about. Like, I could barely walk as it is right now, and I could barely like move around. Sitting in this chair is all I do anymore. As soon as I got in through the door, it was the first thing I did, and I haven't moved since. I still have my work boots on, because it hurts me trying to take them off. And like, I think about that and just like question, like, is it worth going any further? Like, how far are we going to go before somebody ends up really hurt?
Yeah, I think this is, decisions have to be made, and let's just say that wrestling has a lot of bad blood between people, and people have destroyed each other in rings beyond the definition of destroying.
Like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of people that get along with each other, and then there's a lot of people that don't like each other at all. And me and him are definitely we're like the toxic bunch, especially in H2O's locker room. Like, for the most part, like, there's never really any issues in H2O's locker room. The only issues there have been lately have just been me and him. And it's like, it comes to a point, like, he'll sit on one side and I'm sitting on the complete opposite side. And I just, like, I'll wait and I'll listen. I hear him say something. I think he's saying something about me. I start yelling across the locker room. Here we go, arguing with each other. And it's like, it's literally how the last, like, I want to say 5-6 months, like, whenever I finally actually went in the ring and hit him, it was maybe a couple weeks before that is when everything really started to occur beforehand.
A lot of bad blood, and people. Wrestling is a very complicated business because your coworkers are not your coworkers per se, or traditional coworkers is a good way to put it. Without going too much into kayfabe and all the crazy shit, and without getting me banned from an H2O show, I just because I know people have been banned. I know people have been banned, and I do not want to be on that list.
There have been a few. I don't think you're the guy that tried to stab Kid Osborne with a piece of wood, so I think you're all right. Although
I actually like Kid Osborne. I really do.
When I heard that happen, I was a bit like, at first I was like up in arms, like, who was trying to do what? And then at the same time, I was just like, really? Like, I'm a little jealous at this. I'm a little jealous. That's good heat right there. Somebody wants to stab me? I'm doing my job.
That's good heat until they try to do it.
Where I come from, you can go ahead and try. There's been numerous people that have. They failed miserably. So go ahead. Go for it. I'll give you the spot.
That's mind-boggling to me in so many ways. That somebody would try to stab Kid Osborne with a piece of wood.
Yeah.
I don't know what's more offensive, the fact that they were trying to stab him with a piece of wood, or they didn't go for a knife.
I mean, I feel like that would have probably been the worst outcome, because then you got this guy swinging a knife around trying to go after somebody. There's going to be people getting cut. At least a piece of wood. People see the piece of wood, and you got everybody trying to jump in front of it. Somebody has a knife, they're going to get out of the way.
I'm just saying that if you're going to make a hit on Kid Osborne, you better bring the fire.
Oh yeah, you better bring the fire, because Kit will whip that ass too. Don't judge Kit because he's a little smaller than some people. Kit will kick somebody's ass in a heartbeat. Put his hair up in a ponytail, and it's on.
Clearly, that's exactly. And those matches with Tara Calloway were really good.
Yeah,
they were really good matches. I think there was 2 or 3 of them, I want to say.
Yeah,
and that I think it was a trilogy of matches, right?
I believe so. Yeah,
and I mean those matches were some of Tara's best.
Yeah,
and Kid is always good, and there's the reason why I want to interview him badly, because he's really good, and I think he's underrated tremendously.
Yeah, 100%. That's one person, like, when somebody, not that long ago, somebody asked me, like, well, who would you want to work that you haven't worked? And I'm like, well, there's a million people, like, I would want to work that I haven't worked, but, like, that is possible, especially, like, for where I'm at, like, local-wise and just H2O in general. Like, he's definitely somebody I do want to eventually one day work. But as far as everything's been going so far, I got to get asshole off my back first before I can go and wrestle anybody else. Because for some reason, he has it out for me still.
Well, you know what it is. I'm sure it's going to be resolved one way or another, and
It's going to get resolved. You believe me, it will be resolved one way or another because I'm not going to put up with this any longer. I'm really not.
and then so obviously I don't want to pretense anything. I don't want to go spoil anything with H2O. I'm
No.
sure that the universe has a plan for the two of you, and there's a ring in Jersey somewhere and there's an arena somewhere in Jersey that could handle the two of you, hopefully.
There's an arena, there's a ring, there's a parking lot, there's whatever. We can go into the woods where nobody's watching. Doesn't matter with me anymore. It really doesn't. I got the pro wrestling to keep me from getting in trouble outside, but now it's like that life is starting to slowly make its way back into my life today. Like I got away from that part of my life, but things are happening now that are like pulling me back into that direction where I'm going to be not a different, but kind of a different person. People are going to start seeing a different side of me, and it's a side I didn't want to show anybody. But if I have to, I'm going to have to. Like I ain't got no other choice. It was how I was raised. It was how I was brought up, and there's no other way around it.
Well, you do have some stuff coming up, and I don't want to pretense anything, and I don't want to get an admission of guilt out of you, and I do not want to have to testify at the trial. So, having said all that,
you don't know nothing. We'll delete all this.
Yeah, we'll delete all of it.
This is all AI. This is AI. This is not me talking. You have no proof. I seen how they edit these videos and make people look like they're saying things that they're really not saying. We all seen them videos. You hear me, Fed?
So now that we have a very, very, very good defense planned out, I do want to talk about
Stephen P. No. You want to play that game? I'll call Stephen P. No.
Just get Mark
Cornet guy. I'm about to get all this heat right now. I'm a Cornet guy. Yes, I am. 150% Jim Cornette. I'm on Team Cornette. Man will probably never watch a second of anything I've ever done, but you know what? That's okay.
What's crazy about Jim Cornette, and this is what people don't understand. I'm about to ruin Jim Cornette for everybody, and I hope he sees this because I'm going to send this clip to him. Jim Cornette does something so outrageous that you click it, and then he has a sponsor. Everybody gets shit on Jim Cornette, and you know what he does when he gets shit on? He laughs to the bank because you're all clicking. His sponsor's happy. His sponsor pays him real big money, and then it's like when he said Becky Lynch was going to have a kid and gave him $1 million contract. You know what happened to Jim Cornette? Jim Cornette made $100,000 because that's what happens. He said something controversial. You all bid at it, and whether I don't know even if Jim Cornette believes that or not, and it doesn't matter if he believes it or not because he made a lot of money and he made money off of everybody and nobody got it. If you all just said, "Oh, he said something really ridiculous," let's actually not click it and hear what he said, it'd be relevant because he wouldn't make any money off of it, and people are dumb in doing that. And I understand it's clickbait, but if we go and have a controversial discussion about something, people will click on my sponsor, which is my Kickstarter, and I don't have a wrestling sponsor yet, would be thrilled with me because I'm making them money.
Mm-hmm.
And so that I just ruined Jim Cornette for everybody. You're welcome. You're welcome. You can hate me.
Like, granted, okay, I didn't. Not that I took offense to it, but I kind of was a little like sour with him when he started talking about the Destiny show in Trenton, because that was one of the proudest moments for me. I was wrestling in a baseball field. Granted, okay, first match on the card, I don't care. I'm wrestling in a baseball field, and for him to like shit on it the way he did and make all the jokes, whatever, I was like, screw you, Jim. But I'm still a Cornette guy. I listen to a lot of his stuff for basic knowledge. Like the man was in the business back in the heyday when getting chased out by somebody trying to stab you was a regular occurrence. That man's almost been stabbed over 1,000 times. He's been attacked, everything. He knows what heat is. The man's generated heat. if you ever actually take the time and watch his promos, the way he conducted himself back then, there was no limits with him. He really doesn't do anything different, especially today on his podcast. He's still Jim Cornette. He's still the guy that was holding the tennis racket. Just now he's talking about current wrestling and everybody that
I respect
doesn't like it.
Don't get me wrong. I respect Jim Cornette. I think what he did with TNA back in the day and having those open meetings and having that, I thought that stuff was way better than Monday Night Raw by far. What he was doing and running it for a while at least. And then, obviously Dixie sort of took over, and then we had MVP era stuff going on. And while that stuff was okay, I thought that TNA really took a nosedive when Cornette left in a lot of ways. And
I don't know the whole backstory behind that. I feel like TNA's nosedive happened in like 2012. Like a lot of people hate on when like Jeff Hardy and RVD and all them were involved. I love that stuff, but that was, I feel like, towards the end of when TNA really started going downhill.
But yeah, I think when Hogan and Bischoff came in, it didn't help. It helped with ratings, it helped with some legitimacy, but it did not help in the long run.
They're padding their pensions. Everyone knew what they were doing. Everyone knew what they were doing.
And then Ric Flair too. And look, props to Booker T though, because I enjoyed Booker T in there, but Booker T was getting money. Kevin Nash, not so much. Kurt Angle, not so much, because those guys came in what was it, like 2007? Kurt Angle, and he had matches and amazing matches with Samoa Joe. That wasn't Kurt getting his pension,
Yeah. No, Kurt was in there for the love of pro wrestling. That's why Kurt, I believe, was there. Kevin Nash might have been padding his pension because he made appearances a lot. He would be there, then he wouldn't, then he would be back, and then he wouldn't. Plus, Kevin Nash was milking WCW. Like, I don't even know how much he was making a year, but he was making a ridiculous amount of money to barely even do anything, and everything he did was whatever he wanted to do. Like, if they said, all right, you're suspended, I don't care. I'm getting paid millions anyway. I respect that part. Between him and Scott Hall, how they milk them for everything, I would have done the same thing. My
favorite thing about WCW is Eric Bischoff. So Eric Bischoff got stocks. And so what happened with Eric Bischoff is that he got stocks in like AOL. So now what happened is that Eric Bischoff got fired from WCW, and he had to have his stocks being sold off as part of the deal, but AOL was super high when it sold off. So Eric Bischoff didn't make millions in WCW by acting. Yeah, he made millions by getting fired. Mm-hmm. He made like a boatload of money because his stock had to be sold off, and then like a year and a half later, the stock like crashed. And it's like, it's the greatest story ever with Eric Bischoff. The fact that he gets fired and he makes millions of dollars because his stock had to be forced sold off. And it was just a crazy circumstance.
I think it's funny because I only know like a few of the scheme stories, but there's one story I love. Have you ever heard how Paul Heyman used to scheme WCW for their flight tickets?
I don't know this one. I don't know this one. This is beautiful. Way more interesting. We should have just did this podcast instead. Clearly,
I told you we're going to go. It's good thing that there isn't so much on me, so we can go on forever now. So back in like the 80s or early, whenever he was part of WCW, they would issue them tickets to catch planes and everything. So he would fly back and forth from New York all the time, and they were giving him the plane tickets. So he would go and he would exchange his plane ticket for another, like first class or something like that, and change it to like another city or something like that. Same price, they'd have to pay $1 for it. They would change the ticket. Then he would go to another teller, do it again, and then do it again to the point on their computer, it would like keep track with like 4 of them, like which credit card it came from, and it would say Turner Network. I probably butchered the story completely, but he would do it like he would do it 3 or 4 times to the point when it came up on the computer, it wouldn't be WCW's credit card, it would be his credit card. So he would exchange the ticket for money, stay in Atlanta. They would think he's going back and forth to New York. Mind you, every time they give him a plane ticket, he's going and selling it and pocketing the money. And then when they caught him eventually, he threatened to sue them. That was one of the lawsuit times. But as soon as I heard that he was like getting away, he had like a girlfriend who was some manager at a hotel in Atlanta. He was staying there the whole entire time. He called in, and it was like how he got caught was beautiful. It was one of the first caller IDs they had. And he called in to say, "Yeah, I'm stuck at the airport. I don't know if I'm going to make it tonight." Da 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 da. And Jim Ross was working there, and he pointed to the phone and pointed at the number and said, "Look, it's an Atlanta phone number. That's not a New York phone number." So he's still in Atlanta trying to bullshit us, saying that he's in New York, that he's not coming. It was just, I love the whole, and then the fact that he tried suing them afterwards. After he got caught, he was not caught. He was suing.
So
He was getting his money.
My Paul Heyman story is not as good, but my Paul Heyman story is that Paul Heyman pretty much lived in Scarsdale, and I lived in Yorktown my entire life. So like I know exactly where Paul Heyman lived and where Paul Heyman's like stuff is and all that stuff. So it's kind of crazy in that regard. And small world is all I'm gonna say on that. And then pretty much I now live in Bethel, Connecticut. So when I'm going to like New York City, and you sort of pass Stamford and you see WWE's headquarters and you see the flag, and it's kind of a really cool thing. And all I gotta say is I love Paul Heyman, because Paul Heyman is great. The fact that he got hired from WWE because he didn't want him to go play with his kids.
Yeah, I mean, certain things like that, like I won't agree with, because I love being around my daughter, but like there's other things that he did, I'm just like, oh, he's the man for that.
Oh, it's great. I mean, Paul Heyman is so brilliant. I mean, ECW, everything Paul Heyman has done, and Paul Heyman is like instrumental in the WWE video games. I mean, if WWE lost Paul Heyman, it would be a nightmare. It'd be a nightmare because they need Paul Heyman more than he needs.
Most of the best stuff that they've produced with his name on it have been the best stuff that they've shown on TV. Anything that he like is behind, that he's in control of as far as creative wise, it seems like it's the best things that they have going on their program.
I mean, Kelly, you can't argue with me. It's Kelly, best thing ever.
I was 10 years old when that girl took her shirt off and had her whole chest painted like the American flag. I was so happy sitting right. They had
my favorite gif is strip poker, and Trinity and Kelly are there, and Kelly just takes off her shirt, and it's the two aces, and I'm just like, this is great. Because I don't know how old you are.
I think I was like 10 years. It was the 4th of July episode for ECW. Me and my dad were up in like the second level because SmackDown was sold out. So somebody was walking around. They had comp tickets for down on the floor. So we go down there just in time for ECW to start, and we're basically sitting that second row from the stage that she did the striptease on. I was 10 years old, standing on my seat, eyes like this. I was glued. It was a life-changing moment.
So let me ask you a question. How old are you? Because this is super important.
I'm 25.
So I'm 29, so I was slightly older, and obviously I came a little bit late into WWE, but I remember staying up on Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock watching ECW. I'm like, this is the shit. Like, this is amazing.
I was so happy when they restarted ECW. Like, once I didn't learn about, like, I knew of ECW, but I didn't really learn what ECW was until they came out with the rise and fall of ECW. And then I come to find out I was born and raised. I still live like 7 blocks away from the ECW arena. So like, it was cool to me knowing like how close it was. And then my dad telling me stories on top of it, because he went out with the New Year's Club that they would run their shows at. And then just like seeing the whole atmosphere, that basically is what glued me and brought me to the genre that I do now.
So how I got into wrestling is 9th grade. So I didn't watch wrestling until I was in 9th grade. So now maybe like 14, 15. So I came in super late. And then now what happened is I'm watching it. ECW's back, and I heard all these great stories about ECW from like just people in high school. And then I'm like, oh snap! This is awesome. And I'm watching it, and wrestling's not popular, and people are
Yeah.
like sort of teasing you. And I'm like an anime comic book nerd watching wrestling, and because all the kids who watch wrestling grew out of it. And now I'm watching it. I'm like, man, this is awesome. John Cena, Edge feud, all that
Yeah.
stuff. And I'm like, man, this is exactly what I want. And then you turn up ECW, and then you're watching SmackDown. And you're like, oh my God, this is great. Like, where has this been?
That era of WWE. Like that's the era I've always missed because it was what I grew up on. But it was like the storyline. Like they had it was the most outlandish thing. Like now, thinking back on it, a custody for Dominic match where they hung custody papers of a child above the ring. It was a great match. Story going into it was phenomenal and everything, but like watching it now, it's like, oh my God, this really happened.
And my favorite stuff is like Eddie stole JBL's tires. Like that stuff's ridiculous. The fact that you had John Cena throwing Edge into the Long Island Sound. I mean, this is
I feel like a lot of people have gotten thrown into that some way, shape, or form. Like I remember Stone Cold got knocked. That might not have been Long Island, but I remember Stone Cold like getting thrown off a bridge, and it was just like, what the hell just happened? This was on national TV. Brian Pillman pulling a gun out about to shoot somebody. That was on national TV.
And my favorite stuff is like just John Cena just shooting on Lita every single week.
They had a live sex scene in the middle of the ring. The best part is Edge coming up from the blanket with the panties in his fit out. He was loving life.
And then Ric Flair
watching that.
Didn't Ric Flair interrupt it, and then Edge took out Ric Flair and just continued?
I forget how it went. I honestly haven't watched it since it happened. I'm just not the person to go, oh, let me watch this again. But I just remember John Cena somehow getting involved and Edge getting thrown in his underwear. Like full on tighty whities taking like the FU or something like that. Like it was something ridiculous. But the fact that they were actually doing that.
FU Lita?
Yeah. I think he did.
Oh my God! Like there were so many things. Like I think Ric Flair interrupted it too, and then like Edge can chair code Ric Flair, and it just continues.
It's the usual night in the bed, huh? Take a chair towel. Keep your mouth shut.
And then my favorite thing is when John Cena invaded Edge's hotel room.
Oh my God! Yeah, I forgot all about that one.
And then this was also during the era where DX was going with Vince. Vince loves his cock.
Yeah. Oh, that was beautiful. I love the when he's walking down the hallway, the aliens following behind him doing the walk. Penis pumps.
I mean, this era is so good. Isn't all this stuff?
It was beautiful.
All this stuff is on the network, right?
Yeah, no, I hope it is at least.
I feel like watching all of 2006 Monday Night Raw. I think it would be a great time for the next like.
Oh, it was beautiful. Week. I feel like honestly, because I'm doing it right now with like I'll go back and watch like 2001, 2002 era, and I was telling Sean Henderson yesterday. I was like, I have a new favorite wrestler now, Vince McMahon. Watch Vince McMahon's matches. He's horrible at wrestling, but his facials, the way he sells, and the fact that he bleeds buckets, I love him. I love him.
So let me ask you a question, because I was on somebody else's show and they were interviewing me, and I'm not going to tell you my answer, but I'm curious what yours is, and I'll tell you mine after. Do you think Vince McMahon has lost his mind, or do you think he's 4 steps ahead of everybody?
See, from the things I've heard, like on podcasts on what WWE's doing, and like even the that one Money in the Bank where they were running through the lobby going up to the roof, like some of that, it was like I get because of COVID, they couldn't have fans or anything, but like they tried to be different in a way. But like, come on, someone got thrown off the roof of that building, went back first. Like some of the things, it's just like, dude, what is going on right now? But another issue is that he hires actual like Hollywood writers and like sitcom writers that don't know wrestling. So they're just like typing up and presenting whatever. And he's, oh, that sounds good, I guess. He might be losing it. The
So
man took a
I am
lot of
in.
head trauma. So he
So I
might be
am.
losing.
I'm in. So I'm in the camp where I think Vince is 4 steps ahead of everybody.
Really?
Where so this is why I think
Enlighten
it.
me on this, please.
So, so,
I'm
so
open for everything. I'm not like controversial
this
or
is
something.
what I think is happening. I think that the
Oh,
WWE is going through a very interesting time, unlike AEW, where I think they're trying to become Disneyland, and I think that's what they're doing right now. And so I think what Vince is doing is that he's making a bunch of decisions on the board level, and even how to streamline the product so that the product can be replicated and licensed out, and that you can have it almost run like Disneyland. Because if you look at Disneyland and the Disneyland in Florida, the Disneyland in California, the Disneyland in all these other countries, and it's the idea that it's almost a model at this point where it's a copycat model with a few modifications. And so what I think they're trying to do is that they're trying to streamline everything and they're trying to almost pitch it on a corporate level so that they can secure more billion-dollar deals. And that's what they're doing. So that's why I think he hasn't lost his mind. I think he's actually 4 steps ahead, and everybody's upset because all these people took a big risk. Don't get me wrong. I've had Anthony Green on. I know I've had Tegan Knox on my show. I've had a variety of other people. I believe Bates has been on. Chris Daniels has been on with Kazarian, in 2 separate interviews. And obviously Chris is head of talent of AEW last time I checked. And I get why people are upset that all their friends are getting cut and took risks and bought houses or rented apartments or signed year leases. I get all that in their life. But I don't think from a business standpoint that WWE has lost its mind. I think Vince knows exactly what he's doing because that company is more profitable than it's ever been, and it's actually becoming streamlined. Now, do I think that, and you have to look at their stock, you have to look at their bottom line. You could say the product's a disaster, but if the product is such a disaster, then why are they making more money? Because you're unhappy with what's going on with your favorite wrestler. I completely agree. That's a different discussion. The New York Giants is growing in value. They're a disaster as a football team. They just fired Joe Judge, and their GM retired. Let's be realistic. That was a firing too.
Yeah.
But
That
that's
was
what
them
I
saving face, honestly.
but that's what I mean when I say all this is that I view it very differently because I view it like a sports franchise. And this is where, and look, I don't want to see Tegan go. I like her. She's great. I got Nixon. She was Nixon Noel. I got her before she came to WWE. I got her when she was brand spanking new. I got Leva when she was brand spanking new. I got Chris Daniels when he was in between TNA and AEW and in Ring of Honor about a month before he became champ at Ring of Honor, which was a really cool time to get him. And I got Kazarian because I just asked out of nowhere and I took a leap of faith. It also happens that they were signing at a comic shop that I frequent, and with the Young Bucks of all people. So that was super cool.
That's what's
But
up.
that's what I couldn't even go to that event. My parents went instead. Very cool. Very cool. I was legitimately taking a final in Washington, D.C. So my parents went instead, but it was this weird time where that's why I think Vince isn't losing his mind.
Yeah.
Because the product is not what people want, but they're making more money. They have more deals coming in, and their product is actually becoming simpler and it's becoming more effective. And two things are on the opposite side, but the money sort of speaks for the proof, I feel, in a lot of ways.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right about it. I never looked at it in that light. I kept looking at it as like the obvious of what people were always saying between the product being bad and then like ratings, TV ratings and everything like that. But then when you really look at the big picture, TV ratings for almost everything is down. Like if sports, the ratings for sports, football, Monday Night Football and Sunday Night Football, they're actually down a lot lower than they were.
It's also this is a question I have, and I don't know the answer to it. I don't think you're going to have it either. Is what does the YouTube rating look like? What does the Facebook look like? What does the TikTok look like? What does the Instagram ratings look like? Because
Astronomical
clearly,
compared to TV ratings.
I mean, my podcast and my other podcast does really well. I throw this, and this eventually will become a podcast, and I get really good ratings on my podcast for somebody having no name recognition. I mean, I'm doing 110 plays every day without any promotion on my other show. And you want to talk about somebody who, I don't do well on YouTube per se, and people are giving me shit for it online right now. But it's this idea that I understand that things have shifted now, and I'm well aware. And WWE has my money, and they will always have my money. It is an expense because I pay for Peacock, and I'm willing to give Peacock my $60 every year because it's worth it to me, and I enjoy watching WWE. The Royal Rumble is going to be fun this year. Mickey James. So
I'm looking forward to it because I feel like they're going to come out with some, especially with everything AEW's been doing, with like firing shots at them and then like having big names come in and debut for them. I feel like WWE is going to pull something out of the hat to the point people are not going to expect it.
I think Mickey is going to win the Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
I'm really, really thinking that. I would say that there's a 60% chance she's going to win the Royal Rumble. Because think about that one for a few seconds. She's the Impact Women's Champion. She's going to be that. She wins the Royal Rumble. You have now an Impact Champion challenging Charlotte Flair or whoever, or Becky. I think it's Becky still champ, right?
I have no idea. I know it's one of the two because they're the top two that I always hear about between them and then Sasha Banks. But
so I think that imagine you, because we've never had Mickey James versus Charlotte Flair. We've never had Mickey James versus Becky Lynch. I mean, that's a main event for you. And imagine that this is Mickey's retirement match and Impact granted it. And now you have the Impact, and it says Impact, freaking branding for Impact Wrestling, clearly. But I digress because that's how I would book it, because that would be a mania that gets so much attention. Mickey wins the Royal Rumble, and then now you have the Impact Women's Champion. That's a shot at AEW.
Yeah, that's true. And that's the thing, though. It's like, will they ever take them risks and like go and do an interpromotional thing like that? Like they've never really like have ever went that far and never done anything like that. Like they always call it.
It's coming. It's announced that Mickey's in the Royal Rumble.
Is it really?
I believe, yeah, it is.
Oh, when you were saying it, I'm like, what if she doesn't come? But because I don't keep up with them at all. I didn't know that she actually was announced already.
I'm checking it right now. Mickey James Royal Rumble, because this is super important.
Because the last I seen of her, she was doing something with NWA too, wasn't she?
So yes, so Bella Twins, Mickey James headline 2022 WWE Royal Rumble. So supposedly she's in it, but this is what's going on is that So as announced Friday, the 2022 edition of the event will include some former WWE champions. Lita's going to be there. Obviously the Bella Twins are going to be there. Mickey James, a 5-time WWE who is now Impact, is set to make an appearance as well. So maybe she's not going to be in the match. But you know what it is? I mean, she teased that her next stop is WrestleMania 2038. And then Kelly's supposed to make an appearance. So I don't know what all of this means. But Michelle McCool, a 2-time women champion and 2-time Diva title, is coming back too. So, I mean, and then they threw all this stuff saying, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com sort of just put a bunch of women all in the Royal Rumble. So you got Rhea Ripley, Bella Twin, Shotzi, Natalya, Nikki, Ash, almost a superhero, Michelle McCool, Carmella, Queen Zelina, Mickey James, Michelle McCool, Dana Brooke, Tamina, Kelly, Aaliyah, Naomi, Lita, Shayna Baszler, all in the Women's Royal Rumble is what Sean tweeted. So I don't know what that means, but that sure as hell sort of states it.
No, I feel you on it. That'll be interesting to watch. I hope it's not another 5-hour pay-per-view, but Yeah,
I
definitely
don't
will
mind
be
the Royal
interesting
Rumble
to
being
watch.
5 hours. That doesn't bother me. Royal Rumble should be 5 hours.
Dude, 5 hours is five. That's much, man. That's honestly a little longer than it took to get to Massachusetts. Like, that's just literally, imagine that you're watching a pay-per-view that takes longer than for you to drive from Philadelphia to Massachusetts. It's just that's a little much, man. My ass hurts a little while. I feel bad for the people that are physically in the building because you got the pre-show too on top of it. That's about an hour and a half. So like, who the hell is really trying to sit there for 6 hours?
I don't know. I don't mind it being a 4-hour event because it's the Royal Rumble. Mania should be over 2 days because Mania makes sense over 2 days now.
Yeah, I feel like though that even with them doing that for 2 days, I feel like that kind of takes away the the special part of what WrestleMania is. Like WrestleMania, it's like this one time, one night, one day a year deal, and it's like the biggest event, yada yada. And it's like I feel like with having it 2 days, like it kind of hurts in a way because how many of them fans are actually going back for the second night? You know what I mean? Like,
Well. I mean, technically, it was great when Jimmy Lloyd was in the front seat at Mania. That was funny.
yeah, I
That
love
was
that picture.
hilarious.
I love the fact too that it looked like he was by himself the entire time. Like, because I can see him showing up somewhere. Like, he does it. He does it at H2O all the time. He'll just show up and just like he'll talk to everybody and everything, but you'll see him like moping around, and just like walking around by himself and just like on his phone, and he'll just appear in different places. Like he's dead silent when he walks. Yeah. Jimmy would just like appear behind you. Like you're in a conversation with somebody, you turn, just Jimmy Lloyd standing there looking at you. Funny story about Jimmy Lloyd, actually. I think I was maybe not even a month into training, and Homicide was in Canada, I believe. It was at the time he was still working for Impact, so he wasn't there for training. Jimmy was there, and Jimmy basically was just like, "All right, like I'm gonna run class." It was me and my girlfriend, the only two people there. He looked at me and was just like, "You want to learn lucha?" I'm a month in. I barely know how to hit the ropes. Yeah, let's do it. I'm doing quesadora, head scissors, and then he did it. We did a Canadian destroyer, and all of his body weight landed on my area. And boy, did I see stars. Oh my god. He popped up. He's like, "Yeah, all right." I'm like, "No, Jimmy, I don't think so. I think I might be internally bleeding right now." But that was not even a month in. I'm doing quesadora, head scissors, up and over, flippy, all this lucha stuff. Taught by Jimmy Lloyd, the greatest luchador.
This clearly should have been the interview. Clearly, looking back, clearly we should have went the other way. I made a really bad call today. Clearly,
We'll cut out the beginning. Start the re-intro. Hi, I'm Declan. Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me.
I mean, we've been live this entire time, so we clearly.
Well, I guess we ain't cutting out the beginning. We'll put in the thumbnail. Fast forward to about an hour and 15, and that's when it gets better.
Clearly, you know, if you want all the good history lessons.
It's like a WWE pay-per-view. You got to fast forward midway through the whole entire thing just to get to the good stuff.
So
I'm now never getting signed because I said that.
It's all good. It's
my
all
opportunity out the window.
Sorry, this show last night in my third episode already went downhill. So it's clear this show in my third episode has gone downhill. You're my fourth episode for the year, and we're already in the gutter from last night. So that's how it works.
Oh yeah.
I interviewed somebody who has an adult comic book that basically is pretty much porn comic books. So it's great. It's great. And he has a Kickstarter that's doing like $22,000, and he runs 3 or 4 of them, and they all do like $35,000 to $40,000 a piece. So clearly, I picked the wrong profession, and so did you. Clearly.
Oh yeah. Are you kidding? Just TikTok alone. If I would have like had, or even YouTube, like if I would have actually like taken the time to understand what it is, oh my God. Like I see some of these people, they're millions and millions of dollars just from putting up videos on TikTok. And most of the time the videos ain't even funny or anything, but they get millions of views and they get millions of dollars.
It's whatever. I have to earn my money the hard way. I buy and sell comic books, and I know what I'm doing, and then I just put it into dividend stocks. And because I am not creative on TikTok, I can barely do this show. Nobody watches this show, but I will become very wealthy, and I will retain my wealth because I am not a one-hit wonder. And that's what I've learned in my life, is that that's the problem with TikTok.
See, I think like I've been able to do like TikTok and everything like that. Mind you, I had my girlfriend, which by the way, I'm using her laptop because I don't have a laptop. I had her try to figure out how to work the microphone and the headphones and everything and how to log on to this because I don't know how to do any of this. So when I say like, oh, I picked the wrong career, I would have failed miserably at TikTok. And
For me, I'm in my parents' house. I can barely record this. It's one of those circumstances that I am not in a position where this is as far as creatively as I can go. And I understand that it's circumstantial.
I got a cool sailboat behind me over there. That's as creative as we're getting.
And what I figured out is that I know how to buy and sell comics and then invest the money and my profits and just keep it going. That's the only thing I know how to do. And I will become very wealthy over time. And I will not become.
Actually, some of the when I seen how much the original like Batman series and everything actually go for, and like when they're in good condition, I couldn't believe it. A friend of mine actually, he does the same thing with vintage T-shirts, like old WWF T-shirts from 98, 97 that have the legit tags on them and everything like that. He had one WrestleMania. It was the WrestleMania 14 program shirt, basically the shirt that you bought in the arena when you were there. Still had the tag on and everything. Sold it for like 1,600 or something like that. This is a T-shirt.
There are Aeropunk T-shirts from the 70s that go for like $2,000.
Yeah, it's ridiculous how much these T-shirts actually go for.
I buy and sell comics. I buy and sell Pop Funkos. I buy and sell Pokemon cards. And, I just basically find stuff, and I'm smart enough to I understand the collectible market, and it's awesome. And I'm planning to teach this. And right now on my Kickstarter, it's a great segue, is that for $50, you can sit down with me for an hour, and I can give you a very good basic education, everybody, on how to buy and sell comics and all that stuff and get people's brains spinning. And then in June, July, I'm hoping to build out this class, which is the basics. That's 22 hours. So I'm going hard minimum. It's 22 hours. The first module is an hour and 40 minutes. And that's 1 out of 5 modules in the first section. So, we go hard in this class. And I am, but I'm giving you everything. And once you pay for that class, you can watch it as many times as you want. It's not a subscription. It's a flat fee because it's just easiest for me to do that. I don't want to process a $5 payment every single month. I'd rather charge somebody $150, $200 straight up, and then you have it for life, pretty much. It's much easier for me.
Oh, yeah.
But I digress.
And you're going to be doing what Cornette did, laughing all the way to the bank.
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to be laughing to the bank.
Yeah, I wish I still had my baseball cards. I feel like I would have probably made a nice penny off of some of them baseball cards I had.
Oh, there's so much money to be made. It's not even funny anymore because everybody wants all their cool shit now. And people want books. I just sold a book yesterday for $85 that I paid $25 for. So, and I'll sell books like that, but I'll sell like 30 of them in a month. And so all of a sudden it adds up. And then I basically take the profit. So I buy a new book for $25, and then I just repeat the cycle. And then I take my profits and put it into the stock market. And then I get a dividend, and that's how I make money. And I'm lazy because I want my dividend every month, every quarter, and it works beautifully. And nobody listens to me. And then everybody says, "Hey, Andrew, how do you have money?" And I'm like, because I live below my means, and I found a way how to make money, and I'm an idiot. And there's no question about it. I am not smart. I just understand that I have simplified a battle plan with money.
There you go.
I
I
should be working for
simplified
paper.
battle plan. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep throwing myself on the ground until eventually something works out. And if not, then I'm going to continue working my full-time job, which that has a pension. So, okay, I'll take either or
Well,
at this
I need to
point.
get a job that has a pension or at least a decent 401k. So, but I
That's what
digress.
I feel. I'm happy that I lucked out with. I have a union job I had prior to even getting into wrestling that it actually is lenient enough that when I showed up Monday, waddling and grunting and I can't do anything, all right, light duty. And I'm doing light stuff and I'm not really doing much. I'm sitting in the truck the whole time, which bothers me because I'm bored most of the day now, but my job is cool enough with it. They make fun of me all the time. Oh, did you get hit in the head? Did you get your head split open again? Yeah. Should have seen the reaction when I walked in. The guy would, my one supervisor would always make the joke saying, "Oh, did you get ran over yet? Did you get hit by a car yet? Did you get hit by a car yet?" When I walked in Monday, yo, I got hit by a car. Here's the proof, and showed him the clip of it. The rest, went the whole entire day. I'm an idiot. You're an idiot. You're not going to be able to walk when you're 40. That whole spiel. But mind you, half of them can barely walk, and they were doing stupid grunt work their whole life. I'm like, well, regardless of whatever I do, I'll walk by the time I'm 40, so might as well have fun.
Hey, I can't walk straight anyway, so
I never could. I got 2 feet there. My feet are 2 different sizes. I never could walk straight.
It's okay. That's the beautiful thing. When I was in college and I was half plastered, campus safety is like, "Are you guys drunk walking around?" And then my friend who is going blind is like, "Have you ever seen either one of us walk straight ever?" And campus safety is like, "Yeah, we really haven't. You guys just go." Great story,
That
but
reminded me of high school. I had the disciplinarian grab me. This was maybe a day or two before graduation. And she grabs me and she starts yelling at me saying I'm stoned because I guess my eyes looked a little funky. I just woke up. It's 7:30 in the morning and I was never a morning person. She grabs me and starts accusing me of being high and I ratted on myself. I said to her straight up, "Miss Harris, I smoked weed every single day that I went to the school from freshman year until yesterday. That was the only day I didn't smoke before I went into school." And she grabbed me and accused me of being high. I couldn't believe, and then she was so mad the fact that I actually admitted it. I'm like, "You caught me, but you didn't catch me. You catch me when I'm dead sober." I was like, "If you would have grabbed me yesterday, yeah, you got me. I'm caught. There's nothing I can do about it." I did my senior project. They met me one day. One day I didn't smoke. They met me. And they accused me of being all smoked up.
Well, clearly I'm going to lose all my sponsors, so that's where we're at.
Oh man,
This show's going
right down,
to the gutter.
We should have probably talked on the phone before we did this. I think you should have met the person that you were interviewing before you actually interviewed them. I'm sorry. Don't lose your sponsors. It's my fault. Blame me. Tell your sponsors not to sponsor me, and we'll be good.
My sponsors don't really care because I actually bring them real money, and I brought them over 5 figures at this point. So
there you go.
So they don't really care what I do, but this show is going right down into the gutter. Clearly, season 3, if season 1 was proving the concept, season 2 was being about being a good show. This show is not going to make it to season 4, and we're on episode 4 right here, everybody. So clearly, that's where we're going to end this, but I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself before I get into trouble, and my other guest in 10 minutes is going to shoot me because we're going to be talking about a fantasy, right, Sonia? And it's not going to be as much fun as this interview. I promise.
Oh, Jesus. You can follow me on Instagram. I don't know. Do I have a Facebook?
Yes.
I have a Facebook too. Deklan Grant, and Twitter, Deklan Grant. I'm not like as big as I like Instagram. So if you want to see what I'll actually post, go to Instagram. If you want to see what somebody's going to post for me, go to Facebook.
And I know you have a few matches coming up. I know you're going to be at, I think, Hustle and Gold, I think is happening.
No, I pulled myself off of all of it after
And then
the car and everything. I'm taking the next couple months off.
so you're not gonna have that match with Killian?
Uh-uh.
Oh man, I was looking forward to that because I love Killian.
When's the Killian's in March, right?
Yeah.
That's March 19th.
Maybe around then is when I'll come back. I just got to get my body like I'm beat, like really to the point. I'm lathering myself in Tiger Balm before I walk through the curtain just to ease a bit of the pain before I add more pain on top of it. So I got to take a couple months off.
Fair enough.
I also just got reminded I also have a T-shirt out on deathmatchworldwide.com. So
I put that in the link. I put that in the link.
My man, yeah, go buy my shirt.
So obviously, just so everybody's aware, as you go buy people's shirts, you got to support indie wrestling, which means you got to see them at shows. You got to go buy tickets when they're wrestling. Got to go cheer or boo them. If they have a merch table and you're at a show, actually go up to their merch table and buy something. And if you're not at a show, obviously I put up, Declan's T-shirt on Deathmatch, and that website's up there. Actually buy that shirt because that helps wrestlers. It helps to subsidize income with wrestlers and a variety of other things dealing with that. So it's very important to go do that. Also, go follow people on social media, Facebook pages, Instagram, Twitter. It goes a long way. Actually tweet out when you see wrestlers wrestling. If you can remember their Twitter handles, or if you can't, actually just use their name, because it will get back to them with tags and all that stuff. As far as I'm concerned, I do have a Kickstarter going on. So if you like what you do and you like what you see and you're a wrestler and you want to be on my show or you want to support what I'm doing, obviously I have some guest spots open. I got some live read stuff open. I got medal cards. I got postcards. I got bigger rewards. I got advertisement stuff going on. So if you're a wrestling promotion and you want to advertise with me, I'm more than happy to have you on as an advertiser. And every dollar helps to make season 3 happen. So no donation/pledge is too small. If you throw me $1, it goes a long way, and I greatly appreciate it. And as well as if you're into comic books, you can use BCW supplies, Pop Anime Comics, get 10% off your order, because that shit is expensive, protecting your cards, comics, or anything else that is a paper item. BCW supplies has you covered, 10% off your entire order, and it is a commission link where I get a 5% commission back. And just subscribe to the show and check it out, because I appreciate everybody watching it and all that good stuff. And hopefully I'm not going to lose any sponsors. And if I do, well, it's bound to happen. It was bound to happen. It was bound to happen sooner rather than later.
Well, you had somebody called the Grimy Bastard on your show. You're bound to lose a few sponsors.
I'm more concerned. I'm more concerned that I'll gain a few sponsors, really.
Hopefully.
So on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
The final what? The final word?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully this show doesn't go too far in the gutter. Thanks for having me. It's been real. It's been fun. Just hasn't been real fun. Oh, my God. My back is in a tremendous amount of pain. When a car is coming at you, no matter how tough you think you are, get out of the way. That's all I got to say.
Well, I couldn't have said any better advice, because I think everybody can take that advice to heart. And so that is a wrap.